In a way, one of the wonderful ironies of this tradition, as Bodhidharma said, Zen is, you know, beyond words and letters, directly pointing to the human heart. So it, nevertheless, there's this rich, helpful tradition of sutras, koans, commentaries, teaching, the Dharma. I mean, it's coming up all the time in this way, completely beyond words. Actually, words are also it, but it also is this inheritance that gets very helpfully framed in words and passed on. But the heart of the practice is to really see through the construct of the self. And by that, of course, this one empty, infinite, boundless reality, that this true human heart that's getting, that we're absolutely embodying and immersed in, and at the same time seeking to see and intimately now realize. So though that sense of concept is all of our judgments about self and other, it's really based on this whole dualistic system that we so understandably are ingrained in and then skillfully use and then suffer. So, our judgments about the world, ourselves, others, as opposed to others, that whole sort of scaffolding that we build of who I am. And then it's an artifice. So of course it feels shaky. We suffer it. And we suffer our judgments, we suffer our sense of separation, and we suffer that scaffolding that, can never be enough. It's gonna be lacking. And so then we guard it, we have this, there's that sense of needing to defend it. And it just is a never-ending cycle of separation. So that's what, when we hear all this about Zen is not big on concepts, it's that whole sense of construct around self and other, the whole dualistic framework that we assume, and including the dualism of life and death. That's a concept. And, that's at the heart to resolve the matter of life and death. So all of that is sort of, the water we're swimming in, maybe the bigger, this whole universe. But when we're sitting, it's absolutely natural that our minds throw out these thoughts, just like our stomachs secrete acid. And the invitation in sitting is to see what that is, to take a look, and in taking that backward step and shining the light inward, to see through it. So, there are some pretty simple, there's a range of sort of tools when we're beset by these concepts and sitting, our thoughts. And just a thought alone is not really a concept. It's just a bubble. And if you're sitting very, very still and quiet, and thoughts can come up and they just don't really disturb that. It's sort of like pollen in the air. But when we start to string them together, like beads on a string, to go down what Mumon called the mind road. So we get a ways down it before we realize and then come back. That's when you have concepts. And I think that for myself, the best thing is just to suspend judgment. As soon as I notice that wherever that is, just come back, gently, but clearly. So there's no need to dissect the concept or, discursively analyze it. The seeing is in this kind of sitting, if you get still, shining that light, really the minute you see something, you see through it, it will disappear. It's a wonderful thing. And you know what? If it doesn't, just give it some space. That often will free it up so you can just return to your sitting. I've heard this invitation from Henry and others that if in sitting, some thought loop, and that they're these, they're always about something to do with self and other, some concept, some thought loop comes up, and allowing it space, allowing it, welcoming it, space, turning the light, seeing through. None of that is really releasing it. So you're, kind of on this little loop or treadmill. It's very helpful at that point to just really check in with the heart and see if there's something going on that might have a little more blood flow in it than that loop. That's just dust. And if we can kind of come to, again, it's not so much analyzing what's in the heart, but just acknowledging it and, letting the heart melt. And very often, we come to the heart and maybe see, well, there's some pain or doubt. Shining that light, this space of the unconditioned, but unconditional love. That's what the heart is, and that's what it seeks. So in a sense, you're acknowledging this meeting, like, in that sort of intimate small scale, what Ryan Roshi talked about when practicing with Mu, and in a sense, you're, matching yourself to your true self. The heart is meeting its own self, its own way in this. Maybe it's pain meeting love, or doubt, or whatever it might be. That can really open up what may seem like a kind of crust or boundary. And the wider, the more spacious our sitting, the less the concepts will disturb it. It's just when we really can just rest in this open spaciousness. I mean, where is that scaffolding, really? It's so free. And yet saying that, it's just beginning. If you really come into the present moment, a concept can't survive. It's not born of the present moment. So, Marianne?
Yeah, thank you. Oh, wonderful. Okay. I appreciate that you often speak of opening, letting go, dissolving, etc. You are not saying meditate. Our teacher feels that we don't do meditation. we don't, quote, meditate. We are gathered in it, allowing it to gather us.
Hmm.
But many people speak of meditating. Could you speak about this? Thank you very much. Warm bow.
Ah, what a beautiful question. And of course, as usual, uh, containing its own sort of resolution. Um, I love that definition, actually, gathering us in. You don't, I mean, it's like Joshu. What is meditation? It's not meditation. Well, what do you mean it's not meditation? It's not meditation, like not thinking. And he says, it's alive. It's alive. It's sitting us. Um, but there is this wonderful kind of holding that together with this practice of concentration. Um, and that is wonderful to explore and to develop, to discipline. So, I, for this retreat, translated session as I've, you know, received from folks who really speak Japanese, my teachers, um, encounter of the heart or meeting the heart mind. It also literally means governing the heart mind, both. So, you know, I think that might be what people are getting at. Meditate can mean a lot of different things, actually, all these different traditions. But in some way, it's um, governing this mind. It's nimbly navigating it. It's corralling something, um, coming back again and again to the present moment. You're doing that. I mean, it. I much prefer to this, you know, fundamental baseline. There's no one doing anything, but there is a sense where we make this choice, this decision to sit down for this amount of time and commit to it, and not just do whatever, but really sit, wholehearted, straightforward, thoroughgoing sitting. Um, I have this dear friend, also Henry's dear friend and teacher for Henry, John Gaynor, who I've co-taught with for a month at a time. It's an amazing, at his invitation, in Germany. And because of that situation, I've sit next to him. And I'm, 4 weeks. And of course, we're both offering Doksan, and every other day, well, we alternate talks. But in that setting, because it's so long, every other day is a quiet day. So the whole, so I have this chance to just sit in session every other day next to him. And I mean, the custom, we come into the Zendo and we bow to our neighbors first and then turn and bow, the cushion, even if they're not there yet. That it's so wonderful to sit together. Sitting next to John has its own unique quality. Uh, and I've, if I were to try to describe it, it's like his concentration, I can see it. It's like an atomic acorn. He is so focused. And, I mean, it's just a powerful experience to sit next to that. Um, and I once mentioned this to him, and he said, "Yeah, I have good concentration." I was like, "Oh, that's what we're doing." you know, it's what a practice. Um, There is, a member of Mountain Cloud who I've seen some, and one to one, and the student has got interested in concentration, very serious student, and as part of that, um, tried out one of these Muse headbands, and so actually Mountain Cloud got one. Just collectively, anybody who wants it, and that you download the app free, and you wear this little headband, and it measures, the electrical synapses in your brain behind your ears. And when I first heard about that, I just thought, I am so uninterested in this. But then getting to know this student, I thought, well, I'm curious, and also thought it might help others. And if it might help me. So I got one, and it is a really interesting practice. It's purely concentration practice. And if it has a little app. So the one I've done is, if your mind is very, very focused, it's absolutely silent. And you, even in the distance, if you're really still, it'll give you these little bird sounds, very distant, like rewards, But if you think, oh, that's nice, immediately the weather comes in, so it's just concentration. And if it gets at all off that just fine hairs, that like wire of focus, then you hear it start to rain. And if you get off a little more, it's just, thunder, lightning, storm, just downpour. And as soon as it's biofeedback. So then you figure out, well, how do I get back on this tight wire? This back to that atomic acorn. uh, I don't know that I've gotten there, but um, one thing that's interesting to me is I find this very rejuvenating and kind of like a restful reset to do it. And it's no substitute for sitting. Not, I mean, if that's all I do and no sit, it's like a day where I didn't sit. So that's a very experiential answer to this, but it's always, we're exploring. We're really exploring um, your own native ground. So um, if there's not another question, I have a couple things I wanted to share. But did I miss one?
No, go for it.
Okay. Um, I want to thank you for the questions. And also, somehow over these 4 days, students, you have been sending things. And these are gifts, and you can tell they show up. I want to give them back. Um, and so I'm going to share a few more. And um, one participant, I guess at the end of day 2, had just at the end of the day, or maybe in the breaks, I had started jotting down, perhaps throughout the day, haiku, like 3-line verses. And it's sort of like a review. But of course, in their experience, I think it might resonate. Um, so I'm just going to read some of these. Visitation land, consideration of this moment, a fish in water. The final page arrives. One is unlikely to know. Nothing wasted. The final page turns. the bones continue to arise. Nothing is wasted. Wandering inside, the external appears, one and the same. Eyes open inside, the branch is slowly swaying, one and the same. Tasting less today, a flavor most intimate. Nothing is certain. Knowing less than ever, dissolving toward the sun. Here is most intimate. And here are a few from day 3, yesterday. Everything unleashed. The flagpole is knocked down. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Roaming within this, a sword strike and a twirl. The seed cracks open, shimmering. Silent absorption. Where I was just before now, the gong reverberates. Silent absorption. Momentary loss before a strike to the crown. Silent absorption. Joshu appears not to be before this ringing. And this is today. Take the backward step, transmission of heart-mind, moment to moment. Shame and guilt arise, the innocence of humility. Can I be forgiven? Shame and guilt arise, the innocence of humility, the rock melting sun. Does love love me? Am I allowed to come home? Oh, dear beloved. Cut off the mind road, the plasma of the heart mind, melting of the heart. Transmission of light, inscription hanging on the door. Turn away and see. Song of the grass hut. What might you love, Master? Who is already so? Look out the window. Who shall be a foolish ass? Boundless universe. What is this practice with the aspiration to love? Mountains flow freely. So another way to read that. What is this practice? With the aspiration to love, mountains flow freely. Love is continuity, eyes open, taking the first step, boundless walking. And one more. Doubt litters the mind, swept away to the present. intimately arrive. So thank you for that. Someone else wrote that this retreat had anointed the heart. That's the heart's own anointing. Already so. Just coming home. And then, I often share these poems by Sylvia Ostertag. One other came to mind. So I'll share this one. And it came out of a question someone asked. I think this was, it was either the intro retreat, it must have been a few weeks ago. What is stilling the mind for? Was the question. And I was, huh? But I mean, not what a beautiful question. It's just, it was so wonderful to come out of beginner's mind. What is stilling the mind for? And I feel like my whole body just wanted to say, behold. But actually, it's a really good question. So here's Sylvia Ostertag's poem, Where To? Where does this sitting in silence actually lead us? Does it lead us to ourselves? Does it lead us to the other? So how would we like it? Absurd question. Have we not long since experienced how silence pushes us toward ourselves, toward this self, which cannot be equated with the changing sensations, thoughts, and feelings, which we think of as being us while we flee from ourselves? Do we not remember how silence draws us to the self, which in itself is like pure silence, like nothing but silence? And have we not seen how it is precisely this experience which opens us to the other? As if in the other and in me, there were only this one silent self, only this one silence itself.